Hi, it's Jay here and welcome to another tutorial. So in this lesson we are going to fix a problem from a couple of lessons ago. So I'll begin by starting the project and just let it run through to the actual fight itself. And I'll just grab my controller.
Round 1. Fight.
So we'll walk towards the opponent. Now, as you can see, there is a slight... well, there's two issues. The first one is we can actually connect without swinging a punch. This is because the collide is always active, and if it will actually catch the hitbox when I just move too close to the opponent. Now, we are going to fix that probably in the next lesson. But for now, there's another problem we're going to deal with, and that's the hit sparks. So if I come and do it, as you can see, the sparks are appearing in the center of the screen, but we actually need them to appear at the point of impact. So just bear with me. Just put my controller down for the moment. So let's stop that there and we'll begin to fix. So let's come back onto, and we'll need to open opponent head hit, opponent AI, and we'll need the opponent manager. So just to make sure the black robot is always the opponent we're going to face, we're going to change this line here where we say opponent order OP equals opponent order random order, and we're going to change it to equal black robot opponent in the speech mark. So I'll just save that off there. Now obviously I'm going to switch this back when we've done. It's just because I haven't got the other characters set up as yet. But the reason I've not done that is because we are going to update and make changes to the hit script at a later video. So I'll probably set the rest of them up once we've actually made all the changes and updates we're going to make. But first of all, let's just get this working. And I'm going to come into head hit. And at the top, I'm going to create of type public, of type static. Now it needs to be public and static because we're going to reference this from another script, or we're going to access it from another script to be more accurate. Now it's going to be of type vector3. We'll give it a naming convention of underscore, and let's say opponent. We'll just say impact point. Close that line off. Let's come into the comments. Create naming convention for an empty vector 3 because it's going to be empty to start with. And just to make sure, we're going to come into the void start. We're going to choose that new variable. So opponent impact point, we're going to say it's equal to vector 3 dot and 0. Let's close that line off. So let's get this into the comments. Opponent impact point equals 0 on start up. I paused for a minute, then I thought you could put 0 vector 3 or whatever, but I'm just going to leave it at that. I think that's absolutely fine for the comment. So we're just making sure it has no value, because we're going to give it a value inside the on trigger enter. Now, a word of note here, normally to get an impact point, you would use on collision enter or on collision stay. But because of the way our project is set up, that's not an option in this case. So I'm going to show you a different way of doing it using the on trigger enter, and it will require some tweaks because of that, but it's fairly simple. Just one little tweak we'll need to change. So with that said, let's choose, and we actually want opponent head hit. We're referencing the collider dot, and I want closest point on bounds. Open and close brackets, close the line off. Inside the brackets, we're going to say transform dot position. Now, as for closest point on bounds, I really do suggest reading up about it on the Unity website, but if we hover our mouse cursor over, we can see the closest point to the bounding box of the attached collider. So basically, we're just getting the bounds of the game object that the collider is attached to. That's the basic gist of it. But as I said, I really suggest reading up more about it. So with that said, we'll put get. I'll just copy and paste that naming convention in. Opponent head hit. Collider. Transform. And position. Based on bounds. And we'll actually need one more line of code for this script. So we're going to say opponent impact point is going to be equal to opponent head hit, so the collider transform and again dot position. So I'll just copy and paste that naming convention in, equals the, and we want this variable this time, opponent head hit, transform, and position. So we create an empty vector3, we make sure it's empty by zeroing it out. The collider, the closest point on bounds, and its transform position. And we make the impact point, this once empty variable, we give it a value, which is equal to the opponent head hit dot transform dot position. So let's just save that off, and now we can come to the opponent AI. So let's just scroll down. I need to find, here we go, opponent head hit void. Now we need a line of code, so make sure that it's above this line. Game object HS equals, and then we instantiate the hit sparks. As you can see, we're just instantiating it 3 zeros, a completely zeroed out vector. We're going to change that, but first we need to say, sorry, just caught my keyboard then. We need a vector3, a temporary vector3. Yeah, in fact, I will just call this underscore impact point. So that's the naming convention for this temporary vector3, and we're going to say it's going to be equal to the opponent head hit, and this is a reference to the script itself, and then we want the variable we created inside that script, which is the underscore opponent impact point. So this temporary variable now has the value of this variable from this script, and that's why we need to make it public static. So let's come in the comments. We'll say impact point equals opponent impact point from the opponent head hit script. So now we have a temporary variable with that value. That's the point we want to instantiate. So I'm going to come here to this line where we actually do instantiate at a new vector 3 and 3 zeros. So I'm going to enter here in front of the first 0 and then after the next 2 commas. And in fact, let's just cut the comment and we'll put this on the line that still says instantiate. Instantiate Hitsparks prefab at, we can get rid of this position because that's what we're going to use a comment here. And what we're going to do is say impact point dot x, remembering to leave the comma. Let's just copy and paste that in twice over the zeros. Remember to leave the comma here and the close bracket, then comma here. We're going to change the middle one to Y and the last one to Z. Now, if we was to run the script as it is, the actual Hitsparks prefab would actually be in the middle at the feet of the player. But we're going to fix that in a moment. First, let's just get the comments in place. We're going to say at underscore impact point. Let's say, yeah, X axis. So okay, I was thinking putting X position, which you can put if you like into your comments, but axis is more accurate. So let's change that to Y and Z. Now impact point Y, I'm going to come here after the Y and before the comma, and I'm going to say +1. That's all we need. Now again, a word of note, this value of 1 will be different for some of you, maybe even a lot of you. I'm using the value of 1 because it suits the models I am using, but you may need to change this value, so please don't be frightened to experiment with this variable. And of course, if you wanted to make it easier, you could obviously create a public and probably float underscore, I'll just put temp for now, make it equal to 0, and then copy and paste this into there, and that will give you a way of adjusting this value in the inspector, so you don't have to keep coming back to the script and changing this value, running the game again and keep doing that until you find a value that suits your project. If you are struggling, I suggest you set it up like this, allow yourself to adjust it in the inspector while the game's running, make it a lot easier. But I'm using a value of 1, so in the comments I'm going to say at impact point y-axis +1, obviously, but also I'm going to put into brackets the approx model height. Let's just save that off. We'll downsize the script, wait for it to recompile, we'll hit play and let the game run through. So please excuse me, I'm just going to grab the controller. Okay. Let's start one player, we'll choose a fighter.
Fight.
And let's move towards the opponent and let's strike them. Now, as you can see, the hit sparks are at their head. Now, there's still two problems with this actual prefab, the hit sparks. Now, one's a problem with the actual prefab itself. It's playing for too long, so it looks a bit funny when the head moves, but that's not a problem with the coding. That is more of a problem with just the particle system staying on screen a little bit too long. And like I said, you know, you'll have to do the same. Tweak your particle systems to actually suit your project. It's also, if I strike the opponent again, it's a little behind the head. So I'll probably add to these just the same way I've done here till I find a point where it's actually appearing in front. In my case it will be the Z axis, so I'll probably put something like plus 0.2 F. And I haven't tested that value, so you know, it might not work. I have to come back and readjust it. But again, I think you get the idea that you will have to tweak these values to suit something that fits with the models you're using.
Round one. Fight.
And the like. But the most important thing is the actual hit sparks are in the correct place, approximately, just with some tweaking. I think that might need to be minus 0.2. Just never didn't think, I'll be quite honest, so it probably should have been minus. Let's have a look. I'm not going to make any more tweaks in this video if it's not correct. I'll do that off camera because these are these are the sort of things that can take a little while of just constantly tweaking, but the most important thing, so it's approximately correct now. I'll probably want to adjust the x-axis to move it a bit closer to the actual strike point. Maybe 0.2 is a bit too much, maybe 0.1 or minus 0.1 is enough, but as I said, we'll finish that off in another lesson, or I'll finish that off screen and we'll fix the other error up off the other lesson. Now come to your opponent manager before you finish, just Control Z, put the script back correct. Once you've done testing yourself, remember to save. And I think we'll leave it here for this lesson. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you next time. And until then, as always, bye for now.